lesson is talking about mastering, as I mentioned. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do this we'll do it in Pro Tools. You can do mastering in anything, though. You can do mastering in Ableton Live. You can do mastering in Logic, whatever it is. I'm just going to use Pro Tools here just because I'm teaching you all about Pro Tools and just show you how to do, how you should do your mastering. There's a lot of kind of misconceptions and myths surrounding mastering. One of them is that mastering is going to make a bad mix sound good, and that's not true. Mastering will make a good mix sound really good and a great mix sound amazing. And it really is kind of a secret weapon and a secret ingredient to the whole process, something that a lot of people don't really fully understand. But it's not true that if you have a bad mix, it's going to make it sound amazing. That's really what I thought when I first started off. I thought, okay, I've got my mix is okay, but when I get it mastered, it's going to sound amazing. They're just going to do all this amazing stuff. No, that's not true. Really what's true is that if your mix sounds like amazing, the mastering is really going to pull it all together and just make it sound really, really awesome. But it's not going to make a bad mix sound amazing. It actually won't make a bad mix sound any better, really. All right, so mastering 2010 W12. Now in here, just going to go over a couple of these settings real quick. File type wave, 24-bit, 44.1 sample rate, IO settings, stereo mix, interleaved, and then we'll go in my Pro Tools projects folder. There we go, boom. Awesome. So there we go. There's our setup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple tracks here. And we can do it in this. It doesn't really matter which window we make the tracks in the edit window or the mix window. So I'm just going to do it in here real quick. And these tracks will be stereo audio tracks. And the first track will be called track 1. We'll do 2 tracks. And then the next track, oops. The next track will be a stereo audio track, and that'll be track 2. And then we'll make another track down here, stereo again. We'll call this one reference. And the reference track is what we're going to refer back to when we are doing our mastering. So and we could put that first. Actually, let's put that at the top. And we'll just go over here and we'll turn this into minutes and seconds. It doesn't need to be bars and beats because I'm not going to do the mastering here. I'm going to turn my grid off because I don't need to see my grid. And now we'll go into my hard drive and grab some songs. So let's go over here into the I'll go into my Dropbox and grab some stuff in here. And in here, we'll do, here, let's use this one, the Puffy Party. So it's a pre-master, and that one's the track sounds pretty good. I'm just going to drag that in here into Pro Tools. Here's what it looks like there. And you can see it's not very loud at all. It's actually really not loud. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And I did this one at really low volume. And then here's another track here we'll have here. Come on up, baby. There you go. Yes. All right. Nap time for puppy. Yes. All right. And then we'll go over here to the original tracks and we'll grab, I think, drop and slide. This one's mastered though. Let's see if I have a version of drop and slide that is not mastered. Let's see here. What was it here? Renegade Masters. Oh, it's probably in a different folder somewhere. I don't think it's on this hard drive. Let's see if it's on this hard drive here. It might be. Let's do a search for it. Drop. Let's slide. Drop and slide stems. Oh, I do have it in. Wait, no. Let's see. Glitch. Here we go. It is in here. It's on my hard drive. So let's just see in here, drop and slide. So here's the ones that are like pre-masters and stuff. Instrumental, probably done, getting there, maybe pre-master. Here, let's use this one. And I'll drag this one in here. And that one's probably pretty much done. And you can see it's very similar. It's a bit louder than the other one here. I wanted to get you a couple tracks here to show you like the loudness of these. And we'll kind of talk about these a little bit more. So 3 auxes, not auxes, these are actually audio tracks. And yes, you have a separate track for every song you want to master in the same session. Now, why would you bring several songs into the same session? Well, you might bring several songs into the same session because if you're doing an album or something like that. And if you really want all the songs to sound kind of similar, then you're going to bring them into the same session. We're going to talk about all that in just a second here. Let me just get things set up here. So I've got my track 1 here, and here we can rename this one here. This is a remix we did, Puffy Party remix. Oops. And then this is drop and slide. And there we go. And let's grab a reference track. And for a reference track, let's see what's over here. Grab maybe, there's a track from what's the name of the record label? Desert Hearts Records. I think that would be a good one to put in here. And so let's just go in and grab that. Let's grab the DJ tracks. And wait, oh no, wrong folder. Go to Renegade Masters. Here we go, DJ set music. And I think it was back here. Let's see, where would it have been? Modified, love burn. No, hold on, I just have to find this track real quick. And everything's pretty well organized. You can see everything. I keep things pretty organized, but I just have to figure out where I put them because I don't keep my stuff organized by genre. I keep it organized by different parties that we played and stuff like that. So let's see. Oh, you know what? I've got different set lists. Okay, here, let's see. What's the name of the song? I'm really bad with song names. Like I can never remember this stuff. So let's just go in here and see. Is it in here? Getting Freaky. This is a good song. Getting Freaky is a good song here. We'll drag this one in here. And what I can do is I can put some reference tracks on here, and you see I'm going to put different reference tracks on different playlists here. So I'm going to make a new playlist, drag some different reference tracks in here. I thought it was in here. That might actually be the song I'm thinking of, but let's grab one more. This is a little bit on the older side, but I like these songs. Let's see here. Dirty Bird promos. This one had, I don't know if it ever got put in here though. Let's grab a Cats and Dogs track and throw it in here as well. There we go. Boom. And I gotta actually set up my outputs on here because my outputs are not set correctly. Set up playback engine. Universal Audio Thunderbolt. Yes, save and restart. That's fine. Now, one thing when you are doing, here, let me just set my I/O settings. One thing when you are doing mastering stuff. There we go. Just make sure all the stuff's good to go. there we go, is that, what was I gonna say? Oh, your hardware buffer size, you can kick that up as high as you want. Like I can kick this up to 512 here, the buffer size. 128's for what I use for production. Now this computer is so powerful, I don't really need to kick it up, but I'm just gonna kick it up here to 512 just to show y'all. Okay, there we go. And then James says, will you bring a master track in? Yes, you always want to have a master fader in here, but we're not actually going to put anything on this master fader. We're just going to use this master fader. Like what we'll put on the master fader is maybe just a like a level, like so we can see the levels. But we're not actually going to put any like effects on the mastering level here. We're going to do our effects on the tracks here. And Staffa, what's up? What's up, Adam Co? Let's see here, Staffa. There you are. Great. Okay. So now, once I'm gonna go ahead and turn this level down here so it doesn't blast everybody out real quick. Though my master level, I'm gonna turn that down, and I'm gonna solo this track out. And you can see this has like a little bit of silence in the beginning, which is always a good idea. Let's go ahead and I'm going to move this forward a little bit too. And that's something you really should do in your pre-master. It's never a bad idea to have a little bit of silence right there in the beginning. Cool. I'll turn this up just a little bit. Now, usually I would not touch my master level here. Usually you don't want to touch the master level because you want this to be all the way up. But the only reason I'm turning it down a little bit right now is so it doesn't blast your ears out. So what I'm going to do, so all the tracks are going to this master. I mean, all your tracks always should go to your master anyway. Like the track should never go to another thing that's not your master unless you have a very specific reason for doing so. And the only reason, really the main reason why you would ever have a track go to anything other than your master fader is because you're going out to a separate output on your audio interface for like live things. So for example, if I'm doing like live some kind of like an audio setup and I wanted to have something go to different speakers. If I had multiple speakers set up, then I might have multiple masters, or I might have just one master going out to my main left and right, and then others one going out to their individual speakers, but individual outputs. But for mixing and stuff like that, you're always going to have a master, and you're always going to usually just leave it at 0. Like I said, literally the only reason I'm turning it down right now is just because I don't want it to be too loud for you guys to hear what I'm saying and stuff like that. So that's why I'm turning it down right here. And if we were in an actual studio, I would leave this at 0 and I would turn down my level on my speakers, on my output on my audio interface. But that's not this makes me really stressed to even talk about this like this, because the only reason I'm doing it is because of the way I have to broadcast stuff out to you. So I don't want my students to get in the habit of turning this down. I'm really paranoid about that. Don't ever touch the master fader here. Like, please don't touch the master fader. And I know some people are going to come in late and they're going to see my master faders down there and be like, oh, well, Tony had his master fader down. No, it's not. That's not what's happening here. I'm turning it down because this is my actual broadcast output. As a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to OBS and I'm going to turn it down right here. There we go. So that way, let's see. And I'll bring this up so it's not blasting. Is that a pretty good level? Can you all still hear my voice over the top of that? I'm gonna turn this down maybe a little bit here. Let me know what sounds good. Does that sound pretty good there? Is that loud enough so you can hear what I'm doing? All right, cool. All right, because now I absolutely, what happened? My keyboard stopped working. All right, well. So now I'm turning my main output level down here so I can hear it clearly. But as long as y'all can hear it clearly, then we're good to go. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know about that, by the way. All right, so I'm just going to do a save here. And Andy, what is up? And that's what I'm saying is like people are going to join us late, so I don't want anybody to see that master level down later and be like, oh, Tony's got his master level down. All right, cool. Now I can stop stressing about that. So what I'm going to do on my master level here is I'm going, and I don't, full disclosure, I actually don't really do my mastering in Pro Tools anymore. I do it in Ableton Live. And I really don't master multiple tracks at the same time anymore. So what I'm going to do in here is we're going to go in here and we're going to go to a, let's see, one of my UAD ones here. And we want to basically see what our level is here. And I used to have an IK multimedia one here, but I didn't install it again. So let's just see what we got here. I want to see my level. And for this, we can use the master meter. Here we go. Boom. So we can see what's going on with our mastering here. This is really good for when you're mastering stuff. You can see what your max is, what you get to over here. So we can see right here, we're like hitting it right above 0 dB. And so we want to make sure we bring that down, but we're not going to do anything here on our master fader. We're just putting that here so we can see stuff. And there's all sorts of different mastering meters that people make. I believe Waves has one. Not Waves. I mean, Waves has a bunch. I believe Native Instruments made one as well, but I could be wrong about that. It's not like, I've got friends who swear by these things and use them a whole lot. I actually just use the one in Ableton Live and just kind of call it a day. My Waves, I don't have, I definitely don't have it in Waves. In my UAD, I definitely do have one in UAD, but digging through all these plugins that I've got from UAD would be dumb. So we're gonna use this one here that comes with Pro Tools. And like I said before, if I'm using Ableton Live, I actually don't show anything at all. I just use the meter in Ableton Live. All right, so we can hear that this track is actually going a little bit above this max, and that's because they're mastering it like crazy. And I just want to show you all this here. We can see this is just an insane, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this track, is because I know Cats and Dogs goes really, really loud with stuff. If we look at this one here, we can see this one's also, looks just like what they call a sausage. It just looks like a sausage, right? And if I go in, if I zoom way in, you can see it's not really clipping anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's really clipping anywhere, but it's almost clipping. And let's take a look. Listen to this one here. Move this back a little bit. What's up, Tamelia? And I'll just go ahead and start over here. And you can hear all the low frequencies and stuff are in there. I actually like this song a whole lot. This used to be in my heavy rotation a few years ago. All right. Cool. And so you can hear what it sounds like. You can see what it looks like. You can see there's a little bit of dynamic range and stuff in here. There's low end. You can hear that, when the low end goes away, we get a lot more dynamic range. But you see a big difference between these songs. These ones and these ones here. These are nowhere near the top of the meter here, and these down here are this one up here is like just crushing the top. So if we back out of this, you can see there's a lot of not a lot of dynamic range, but you can see peaks and valleys in here a lot more than here. This just looks like straight across, just like a wall, right? And these, even though it's it's got a drum, kick drums, and all the stuff. It's all a beat. Here, let me play this for you. So you notice, first of all, it's a lot quieter. Right, if I play this one. Like a lot quieter, right? And we need this to be the same level, basically, and same kind of like overall quality as this one up here. Now, I could just go ahead and turn this up. I can actually turn my waveform up here and just bring this up, and it would just be louder, like right here. But it's still not going to be as loud as that one up top. Hear that, and let's go ahead and solo this one. It's still much louder, right? And what we need to do is we need to kind of get this one to that level there. But what we're still seeing in here is there's a lot of like, even though it's all kicks and snares and stuff like that, there's still a lot of like, when we back out like this one looks more like a wall, and this one you can still see all the peaks and valleys. But when we're done mastering it, that's all going to go away. You're not going to really see those peaks and valleys. You'll see this one here is a little bit less loud. Like this one here gets lower in volume. But this one here is going to look more like this once we're done with this. All right. So before we do that though, let's just take a step back, go back to our thing over here, and let's just talk about what is mastering and what are the kind of the tools that we use for mastering. So what is mastering? Mastering is basically making sure that everything in a given album or everything within the genre of what you're releasing fits everything else within that album or within that genre in terms of coloration and in terms of loudness. Those are the two big things, coloration and loudness. And a lot of people think that it's just about loudness, but it's not just about loudness. It's about the color of the track as well. And whatever genre you're doing, you have to be aware of what other tracks in that genre sound like. How bright are they? How dark are they? Are there a lot more highs? Are there a lot more lows? Stuff like that. It's not just about the loudness of the song. It's about all this other stuff. And what we're going to be doing today is what I would call a demo master. It's not even like a true master. For a true master, you really want to get another set of ears on your track. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because mastering engineers, mostly all they do is mastering. Most people who are actual true mastering engineers, that's all they do is they master. They have a special setup for it. They have special like plugins for it. And like all they do is master. And when you're mixing and mastering, the difference is there's different approaches to it. Mixing, you still have control over all the elements. So if your ride cymbal is too loud, then you'll turn the ride cymbal down. But when you're mastering, you don't have control over all the elements. So if your ride cymbal is too loud in the master, when it gets to the master, you're going to be listening for the specific frequencies of the ride cymbal and kind of going after those with specific plugins that can really go after specific frequencies very well. You don't have control over the individual pieces any longer. That's what should have been done in the mixing stage. So hopefully when you get to the mastering stage, the ride cymbal is not too loud, that there's no weird frequencies popping out. But that brings us to the second reason why we would use mastering. And the second, why we use a separate mastering engineer rather, and that is because you want to get a separate pair of ears on your subject matter. When you get another pair of ears, it's somebody who hasn't been listening to the track over and over and over again for a whole day or a week or however long it takes you to mix that track. If you're the producer of a track and you are mixing the track, then you've been listening to that track for a while, probably a week, maybe more depending on how quickly you're doing stuff, at least a few days. And you've been hearing it and hearing it and hearing it again and again and again and again and again. So you're not gonna really be as objective to it. You don't have that distance that you really need to be able to hear things objectively. So you want to get another pair of ears on it so that somebody can go in and listen to it and be like, oh, this sounds great, but there's this one frequency that's kind of annoying, or there's one thing that's kind of popping out a little bit here and there. So it's really good to have a separate mastering engineer go in there and work on and master your track. All the big mix engineers have a mastering engineer that they work with, and they usually have somebody specifically they work with. Think about Steven Spielberg works a lot with John Williams, or the Beetlejuice director works with the Beetlejuice music guy. That's hilarious. I don't remember any of their names right now, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's certain like directors that always work with the same composers and stuff like that, and the same editors, and the same thing goes for music. A lot of mix engineers will work with the same mastering engineers over and over again. When you're just getting started or you don't have a lot of control over that aspect of things, you might just work with whoever. But it's nice to work with the same person a lot because they start to know your mix style. They start to know what to look for immediately within the track if they've mastered a lot of your tracks. But then I have a lot of friends. I do have a lot of friends who are like more underground producers doing house music and stuff like that, not the mainstream stuff, that do their own mastering as well. So you can do your own mastering. I just really, if you can avoid it, I actually recommend avoiding it. I recommend handing that off to somebody else to do. And if you don't really like what the first person comes back with, then send it to somebody else or send it to somebody else. It's extra money, but it's probably well worth it. Excuse me. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all the parts that we're going to use. And this actually is in Ableton Live. It's talking about demo mastering in Ableton Live. And we'll come back and we'll talk about Ableton Live in a bit, because I want to do this in Pro Tools and in Ableton Live, but we're going to do the basic parts here in Pro Tools. And this is all, it all works about the same. I'm just going to explain what each of these parts is doing. So first you have an EQ, and the EQ is for basic cleanup. And then, like I put in parentheses here, for actual problems, fix it in the mix. Do it in the mix if you can. If you still have control over the mix, then fix something in the mix. If the vocals are too loud, do it in the mix. If they're not loud enough, do it in the mix. But if you're actually working on the mastering, then then you don't actually have access to that stuff probably, so you'll have to do it here. Multiband dynamics. A multiband compressor, but don't push it too hard. A multiband compression is a compressor that works across different frequency ranges. So for example, the low end isn't also going to compress the mids or compress the highs. We'll go into that here in a little bit. A glue compressor or the bus compressor. The glue compressor actually emulates, the Ableton Live glue compressor emulates the SSL bus compressor. So you put that on here. It's a really good compressor for your overall output of your mix, but you don't want to hit it too hard. You just want to have like maybe 5 dB of gain reduction and then adjust the makeup gain as you need to. Then you have a saturator. The saturator is really for tape emulation. Add a bit of drive to warm things up. I like to add a little bit of tape emulation to my sessions to just kind of get them warmer and fatter, quote unquote fatter sounding. And then you also want to make sure you have a brick wall limiter. Brick wall limiter should peak, the gain reduction should peak at -6 to -12 dB in there. So your brick wall limiter should be bringing it up to about 0. When you're outputting a pre-master, something that's going to go into the mastering stage, when you're outputting that, here, let me put this back to 0. That was confusing me. When you're outputting it, you shouldn't be anywhere near that 0 point. And the reason why we have the 0 point, why we say 0, is because 0 is the top level. It's the highest level before digital clipping. And since we're all working in the digital world these days, that's your highest level you can get to before you do a digital clip for MP3s and stuff like that. Now, there are ways to get things a bit louder than that without clipping, and you can, as you can see with this Cats and Dogs track, it actually does go over that 0 point, which is crazy. Oops, here, let's... Like, I don't hear the clipping in there. It sounds good, but it's so loud. Right, and you can hear they're pushing it that hard, and it's just a kick, clap, organ, bass. There's like some background stuff in there as well. And the reason why I chose this song from Cats, because Cats and Dogs, but also because it's like a kind of an underground Cats and Dogs track, not like a more mainstream one. So that's the basic pieces. Now you might use one or more of something in here. You might use another compressor in here, but right now we've got basically 3 kind of compressor before we hit that brick wall limiter. The multiband dynamics is a compressor. You've got the glue compressor, that bus compressor, which is a compressor, and the saturator, we can use it kind of as a compression because tape actually does kind of end up compressing things a little bit. But you can also use it for harmonics. And then your limiter is the final place where you're making sure it's getting really, really loud. Essentially, this first EQ here is just to make sure there's no like real problem frequencies happening. This one here is to kind of balance things out between the mids and the highs and the lows. This one here is to kind of pull it all together to get a little bit more headroom out of it, to make it like louder, to push it up louder. Saturator is to kind of make sure it's nice and big sounding, add some extra harmonic frequencies in there, and then this limiter here is just to make sure not clipping. We really don't want to be pushing the limiter too hard if we can help it. We want to do most of our work in here, and a really good mix is not going to need a whole lot of any of this stuff. So this is like, I would call myself a pretty good mix engineer. I'm not an amazing mix engineer that's like won Grammys or anything like that. That's like a whole different level. But I would, and that might be being too hard on myself, I don't know, but I wouldn't call myself like the best mix engineer in the world. I don't spend all day and all night mixing all the time. I've got friends who are way better at mixing than I am, and so I end up using this kind of stuff a little bit more. Oh, Johnny. Wow. Okay. Cool. All right, so all right, so we got this track in here. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you what this looks like, and I'm going to pull up a couple things. I'm going to pull up my my UAD meter so I can just see what my UAD plugins are doing. I only have one chip on this interface that I've got here, so I can't really push it too hard with UAD stuff. But I do have my I've got the other plugins that don't use UAD, so you're gonna make up all the work. We should talk in Zoom. We should talk in Zoom. I don't know how you're gonna make up that work because we have a week left. That's gonna be a tricky proposition for you, buddy. So, well, we'll talk. All right. So first things first, I'm gonna put an EQ in here, and this is my Pro Q3. I swear by this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the effects that I actually use in real life, and then I can show you some like good substitution effects down here on this drop and slide one. The reason why I use this Pro Q3, let's go ahead and go over here, and you can hear how much quieter it is compared to the other one, right? And so what we're looking for, oh well, first of all, Johnny, this is not a discussion to be having on Twitch. This is a discussion for Zoom, and also, second of all, it's a little bit late to be telling me that. But let's talk on Zoom, dude. I don't want to have this conversation right now in the middle of Twitch. Twitch is the horrible platform for that kind of conversation. All right. So we can see here, if I'm looking at this, you can see all my frequencies, and it actually looks like my frequencies are going pretty good. There's nothing like way huge, like poking out up here or kind of down here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and turn up my main output here, and here, we'll turn this volume level up here for now. I'm just gonna turn this up here so we can hear things better. Cool. All right, so the second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add in, what am I doing? This one. We are gonna add in our multiband dynamics. All right. And the multiband dynamics, what that does is allows us to kind of put compression on individual dynamics. Now, I'm a little bit old school. I actually am not using this Pro Q3 for multiband dynamics, but it really, Pro Q3, and the reason why I say that old school is because I don't think of Pro Q3, I think it still has an EQ, but really you can use it for multiband dynamics and stuff like that. But let's just use a multiband dynamics plugin, and let's see here. One of the ones that I would use is Let's use a UAD one. And here we go, precision multiband, boom. So this one in here, if you don't really know what you're doing too much, and this one, I actually, because I do everything in Ableton Live, I actually use my Ableton Live's multiband dynamics. But what we've got here is we've got the low frequency, low mids, mid frequency, high mids, and high frequencies. And these are all individual compressors. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pull up a preset. And if we just go through here and look at these presets, you can hear how it's changing different things. And what we want to do with this is we want to start getting this to sound kind of like this one here. And you can hear it's not even loud at all. Was it a notebook? Well, it's a note, not a notebook, but it's notes. All right. So you can hear that even with this, we're not anywhere near the level of that one. But we want to start getting it to be loud, about as loud as each other, because when we're dealing with mastering, this part of mastering, we're not talking about the loudness, we're really talking about the color of stuff. And so if I listen to this here, this one, it's got a lot of low end in it. This pushed the low end a lot.
Right here, I'm ready.
Right, so we got that there. Let's go ahead and just keep digging through some of these presets here and just see what we got here. And so this one here calls it loudness, right? Because it's pushing that, and you can hear it's basically just pushing that, in this track, that hand clap. Right, so you want to be a little bit careful about stuff like this, and you don't want it to push, especially for house music, you wouldn't want to push those frequencies too much. Right? So if I bypass this here, push it. Well, you got to be careful about what frequencies you push, and you're joining us a little bit late in the game in this demonstration here. So you're kind of this is too soon to be pushing it. This is too soon to be pushing it. All right. Right now, what we're paying attention to is the overall color of the song, and that's the problem. Is that, like, before we really understand about mastering and stuff like that, it's people think you're going to do everything with just one plugin, and that's just not true. So. Okay, cool. Texting is not the best way to be messing with people. All right, so there we go. Let's use this one here, punching clarity. And that one you can hear, it's like taming my low end a little bit there. Now, let's go in here, and I'm going to use let's use Native Instruments here. Since I've got it, the UAD. Usually for UAD, what I'm going to pull up is my SSL. But I'm going to use the legacy. We're going to use the legacy one here. And, sorry, I don't have time for that, dude. Dropping trash into my chat. Ban. All right, so here's the legacy SSL here. And now we're gonna start pulling this back. Whoops. So with this here, this is where we're gonna start to make it louder. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my threshold. If we pull it down too much, and pull up our makeup gain too much, check this out. You'll hear we suck out all of our low end. We just lost all of our low end. So we want to be really careful about that. Pull the threshold back a little bit, and you don't want your threshold to be going more than like -4 decibels here. And we could check out some of the presets in here as well. We've got some mastering here. You can just kind of scroll through these, and when you're doing presets with most of these things, what you're going to want is to mess with the threshold here. Kind of messing with that threshold, pulling everything together. And it really, you know, different plugins do have a different sound. So if I go ahead, I think I might have enough processor in here to put on my actual SSL, the one I actually use more, is the GBrus compressor, the regular GBrus compressor. You can see up here, it used a lot more of my DSP. But it also has it has a different sound. Got different presets in here as well. So what I'll just use is I'll just do this. So the attack, leave it here. Ratio, set that to here. The release, set it to a pretty high release. There we go. Cool. So you say, I notice when mastering my transients will be louder in the breaks than during the main sections. Yeah, so what happens is when you're mastering like this, if you're not actually doing anything if you're not doing any automation or anything like that, everything is just hitting your master all at once. And when you've got a lot of stuff going on at the same time, because remember, compressors, they work on all your frequencies at once. So when you've got everything hitting, all your low frequencies are hitting, all your mids are hitting, all your highs are hitting, then the lows are keeping everything else under control. They're kind of taming everything down. But when you move those lows out, when you take the lows out during the breakdowns, and all you've got is the mids and the highs, they're gonna become really loud because you don't have those low frequencies, because there's actually a lot more energy in the low end than there is in the mids and the highs. So that low end, you want to keep it under control, and that's why we use the multiband. The multiband kind of helps with that. But even if you're just pushing everything a lot, then you're going to hear a lot, like everything pushes up to the front during the breakdown sections. And so that's like a pretty common thing there. If that's what you're talking about, that your transients are going to be louder in the breaks than in the main sections. Really, what I would say in that kind of situation is go back to your mix and pull your bass down, pull your low end down. If you can't do it in the mix, if you're actually working on mastering other people's music, then maybe go back to here or here, your multiband, or even the EQ in the beginning, and pull the low frequencies down a little bit there, and that might help stuff out there. So, all right, cool. So we got this. Got a nice little compression going on here. Still hear that low end. And T says, is it normal for my compressor to have noise in the session when nothing is playing but the bounced file is fine? T, are you using waves? You're welcome, Crazy. T, are you using waves? If you're using waves, then I don't know if I have the waves yet. So that's, yes. So here's what's happening with your waves. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, I might have it in the H delay. So my H delay has a thing over here on the right-hand side called analog. All the waves plugins that are emulating some kind of older gear, they all have this analog button on them somewhere, and I don't have a lot of waves plugins, so I can't show you where they are, but you want to turn the analog off. Yeah, okay, you got the CLA 76. Yeah, that definitely has it. I used to have one of those like a long time ago, and the CLA 76 has that. Turn that noise off. this is one of my biggest complaints with waves. And when I use waves, you basically you want the default to noise turned off, because you don't want every single plugin to have noise, because in your noise floor it gets loud, and it just sounds like when you're mastering and you're cranking your overall output, you're just going to hear a type constant sound. You're going to hear the constant noise sound, and you don't want that to be a thing. So what I used to do when I used more Waves plugins was I used to turn all my noise off on every single plugin, and I would just add noise on the tape at the end, because that was enough noise for me. So the Waves plugins have the noise built into them. The UAD plugins actually do not have noise built into every single one. But that'll fix your problem right there. But yeah, the CLA it's a great plugin if you don't have the UAD ones or the Slate ones. I'm a big fan of the Slate plugins now. I use Slate and UAD. So okay, here we got the SSL. We got this one here. Let's see. Now let's go for our saturator, which is some tape. Hey, what's up, Rilla? How you doing? So what we got going on here with the saturator plugin is really just tape, and what we'll use is my favorite tape stuff. I don't know if it should fit on here. Is one of my favorite that's easy to use, lightweight on your processor for UAD stuff, is Oxide. Put that here, and it looks like a tape machine. And now you can hear it's really starting to pump things a lot. And settings here. If I want it to be darker, I can put it down to 7.5 IPS, brighter for this one here. The noise reduction, I can turn that on or off. On means there's not going to be any noise. You can see it defaults to no noise. Off means there's going to be some noise in here. And this here is different EQ types. So if we listen, all right, this one's a little bit brighter. So if you want your tracks to be a little bit brighter, keep this up here like this. So Crazy says, is saturation the same as distortion? That's a great question. Here, let's show this real quick. The answer is kinda. The answer is kinda. So saturation is here. I'm gonna pull my output down here, and let's push the input a lot. Now, we're getting distortion here, but we're nowhere near our distortion on our output. And digital distortion doesn't even sound like this. This is what analog distortion sounds like. This is what tape distortion sounds like. If I pull it back, right, now we can't hear that distortion anymore. So I can make it louder here. So the answer is, if you push it enough, saturation becomes distortion. But saturation itself, what it's doing is it's exciting the same kinds of things as distortion. So distortion is like what happens when you push saturation too far. So a distortion pedal on a guitar is just a really cranked up, it could be a cranked up saturation, but saturation, there's different types of saturation. We can have tube saturation, we can have tape saturation. And tape saturation and tube saturation sound very different. So if you're thinking like guitar distortion, that's usually tube saturation, which is a lot brighter, and it saturates a lot. Tubes saturate a lot quicker, distort a lot quicker, and they have a lot brighter. So it's more of that distortion sound, what we really think of as distortion. But distortion, really what it means is whenever the sound is like broken. So you can distort from just clipping the output as well, and we can have digital distortion as well. So saturation is not the same as distortion, but if you oversaturate too much, it will become really distorted. I hope that helps, because that's a great question. and it's something that a lot of people get confused about. So, you know, when I'm listening to stuff like this, and you heard what I did, I pulled my output down because I want to listen to this without it distorting my output. And I push this really hard. We can talk about it more in Zoom for sure. You hear how it's starting to distort it. We're starting to hear it broken up a lot, right? Yeah. Also, Swift, keep in mind, a lot of questions are just going to be answered by listening to stuff. So there's some, like, especially when we're talking about audio stuff like this, really no amount of questions in the world are going to help you to understand it except for just listening to it and trying it out. So, you know, what you want to do is you want to find a saturation plugin like what I'm doing here. Like this is like a tape plugin, right? And tape has tape saturation. What you want to do is you want to find it and you want to experiment with it and overdrive it and crank it up. And let me show you here. So this is a UAD plugin. A lot of people don't have UAD plugins. Let me go ahead and use the Slate. Slate you can get for about $10 a month, and you can cancel it. Like if you do the $10 a month, you can't cancel it at any time. As a student, you can get actually as a student you can get a discount. But here, let's go to the virtual tape machines. You get all these plugins. They're amazing as part of a subscription service, which you can kind of cancel at any time. And let's go in here. Are there any presets? There's no presets in here. All right. So what we're going to use over here is we're going to use the half-inch 2-track for mastering. Now, a couple things over here when you're talking about Slate. I highly recommend people get Slate, by the way. It's great, and you don't need the hardware of UAD. So here we've got our 2-track versus 16-track versus 2-track. For mastering, you want 2-track. This has to do with the half-inch versus 2-inch. For mastering stuff, you want the 2-track here. That's what mastering stuff is done with. And then you've got your bias, which is kind of a high, mid, low frequencies here, or not frequencies, but like a quality tone. And we'll just keep this at normal. Speed 30 versus 15, faster versus slower speed. I believe the 15 is darker. We'll hear it in just a second. And the FG 456 versus FG 9 are different types of tape that you have in here. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do is we can push the settings button here, and you can kind of get some settings. And really what you want to do is try to find some presets that, you know, if you can load in some presets. I don't have any presets in here. I just kind of go in here and move things around because I know a little bit about what I'm doing here. And I don't really want to spend a lot of time like talking about this too much, but see here, this hiss automate, we want to turn this off. Actually, at this point, we could probably leave it on because I don't think I have any hiss kind of built into this track. And over here, noise reduction, wow, and flutter, bass alignment. We can mess around with this stuff here. If you want it to sound really modern and clean and clear, you want to put this at nothing. Let's go ahead and listen to what this stuff sounds like. Wait, can I turn this off? Oh, here, turn this link off. I don't want these to be linked together. What I want to do is I'm going to turn this output off. Now you hear how this one is distorting. Turn this wow and flutter off. There we go. Hear how it's distorting things, and it's distorting kind of based on what my low end is doing, because my low end has lots of information in it, lots of energy. And it's not actually, it doesn't sound bad. It's not what we want for our main, eventually for our main master, but you could use this for some special effects for sounds inside of your, here, let me just show this actually here. So when I click this button, it doesn't, yeah. So you could use this for sounds inside of your mix. It's actually a cool distortion sound. Right, but we definitely don't want it for our main mix. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pull this back. And let's find the point where we're really hearing it. I'm gonna turn my level down so I can hear things a bit clearer. Right, like right on there. You notice that it's not really based on what we're seeing happening over here. It's really based more around, yeah, this is like a tech house track, sure. It's more based around what we're hearing in our headphones, and well, in my case, in my headphones, but in our speakers. Yeah, and sorry, I don't have any like hip hop tracks in here because I produce tech house and house music. So you just kind of have to apply all this stuff to different genres. All right, so what I can do is I can turn this up. Let's turn this down a little bit more. Put that up at 0. Cool. Yeah, that sounds pretty good there. Now, when I start to push this a little bit more, I start to hear, okay, maybe I want a few more high frequencies in here because it's a little bit on the dark side. So I can push those high frequencies over here with this one if I wanted to, right? Or maybe even a little bit higher in our frequency spectrum. And this is where you have to be really careful. It's hard for me to hear stuff on these headphones. They're good headphones, but I don't know what this stuff sounds like on my speakers. I don't have my speakers in this setting here. So I'm not going to push things too much, but cool. All right, so we got this. Let's go ahead and play with some of these settings here and just listen to what they sound like. Right here, how that changes the sound. That gives it a little bit more distortion. Yeah, this has less distortion in it. Yeah. And this here brings out my highs. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Now we are clipping our output down here, so let's go ahead and put a brick wall limiter on here. And for brick wall limiter, there is one that comes with Pro Tools. Let's go over here. It's called Maxim. So we'll just throw that on here for now, and we can use a different one in a little bit here. Now the final settings for this brick wall limiter, and then we're going to go and do this all again in Ableton Live. And that's why I'm kind of keep moving forward here. But our final settings for our brick wall limiter is we want our ceiling to be at like minus 0.1 or 0.3 or something. This is not stem mastering. This is just regular 2-track mastering. I just have a couple different things in here. And then our release, let's set this to about 10 milliseconds so it's like a slow release. Now over here we can turn the dithering on or off. Okay, noise shaping, all this stuff. I usually turn this stuff off, leave the dithering off, because dithering, what it does is it adds some kind of like noise in to kind of shape things to make it sound more smoother. But when you're using all these analog emulation plugins like the SSLs and the tapes and stuff like that, you really don't need that dithering anymore. So I'm going to leave that off, leave the noise shaping off here, keep my ceiling at minus 0.3. A lot of people, and there's some contention around this too, like you might have people that leave it at minus 0.1 or just 0 even. So it's up to you really how you want to do this. But I actually keep my sing a little bit lower than louder. And again, it's up to you about how you want to set that there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our threshold here and we can push this. And this is where our final kind of brick wall part happens, where we're making it super, super loud. But if we haven't set up all the steps before this, then you're going to have problems with it's going to be too pumpy. So when we get to this point, really what we want is we want it to be loud but smooth. I'm still getting a bit of distortion here, so I'm going to go ahead and open both of these up because that distortion is coming from our tape here. Pull that down. And now with this, you don't want the attenuation to hit more than like 6 dB. Like it can peak a little bit more, but you don't want it to hit too much, because what you don't want is you don't want it to be pumping. Like, listen to this. Hear how that's just like going crazy? It sounds horrible. Does not sound good at all. Hold down Shift and press the and click on the plugin to open up both plugins at the same time. And what we're looking at over here is this one on the left-hand side is showing us where our music is hitting the input of the brick wall limiter, and the ceiling is what the overall output is going to be. So this is like a threshold. It's called a threshold here. Other plugins do not call it the threshold. And I just want to show you something. Since we're here, I'm going to go ahead and turn these off. Hold down Command to turn them off. And let's just listen to this. And let's just see it. See how much quieter it is? And if I go down and I just drag this down, if you just want to do a quick master, all you can do is just, all you have to do really just put this on here and just pull this down and look at your output attenuation over here and set that up. And you can hear it's louder, but it lost all the character that it had, and it's not really it's not loud enough across all the spectrum. So this here has a lot more character. Cool. All right, and you can see we're pushing the limit here. Let's go ahead and mute this. All right, and you can hear it's a different mix. Let's go ahead and put this other one back over here and hear what this one sounds like. Right. So one thing you can hear here is that those open hi-hats are a lot clearer in those other mixes. This one has the low ends, so let's go ahead and put this one back. And let's go find a place that actually has some open hi-hats. Pull this back a little bit because we are distorting a little bit too much here. There we go. Cool. In this case, I can pull my threshold down a little bit. Awesome. Okay, and that's the basics of it. So now what we would do is we'd want to take this one song here and kind of make it sound similar-ish to this song down here, and we can see they're different. There's different stuff going on here. Like I don't know what I was doing here because these are both my tracks. So let's go ahead and just option drag these down here to see when we start from the same point what's actually going to happen here. I don't think actually. Oh yeah. Okay, we can have both of them going great. We're pushing the limits here of my DSP. So let's go ahead and just take a look at this, and I'm going to go ahead and back these off here. You can see it's pretty smooth across the top. Okay.
What you feel inside, drop it, slide side to side, make you feel it in your thighs, drop it, slide side to side, do it till you moving right.
So one thing I am going to do, I forgot to do that before, is I'm going to put a low cut in here, and this is something that a lot of mastering engineers recommend that you do. Start with this low cut here, and we'll put the low cut at let's do it at 20 hertz. There we go. Cool.
Do it good, do it right.
And we'll do another one up here at 18 kilohertz. 18K. Just to cut, because that's like stuff that's like kind of extra energy. Actually, some mastering engineers recommend a 30 hertz cut right here, because that's like stuff that speakers don't really reproduce, people don't hear. So it's just extra, it's like too much extra energy that's just kind of like, you know, gonna interfere with the overall mix. And I should have done that up here, actually. Let's put that in here and we'll come back and listen to that in a second. But one thing I do want to do is I just want to go ahead and over here put a, let's put a bell in here to pump those highs a little bit. Drop it, slide, side to side, make you feel it in your thighs. Drop it, slide, side to side, let me know you feel the vibe. Drop it, slide, side to side. I'm just gonna give these a little boost here. Drop it, slide, side to side, make you feel it in your thighs. Drop it, slide, side to side, do it till you moving right side. Do it. You hear it? Like that's way too much. Drop it, slide, side to side. But definitely want to get a little bit of that out there, and I can adjust my Q here, and this is why this EQ is so great, because it allows me to have really exact control over things, and I can see what it's doing here. Great, so let's pull this one in. You moving right, drop it, slide, side to side, make you feel it in your thighs. Okay, a little bit clearer. Let me know you feel the vibe. Drop it, slide, side to side, show me what you feel inside. Drop it. I'm gonna back the threshold off because you can hear this is a louder track. I'm gonna back the threshold off here. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back. Well, not yet. Side, do it good, do it right. Drop it, slide, side to side, do it. Back that one threshold off a little bit there. Now let's go over here and I'm gonna turn this one down to 0 here. And let's go ahead and pull the input down. I'm gonna pull the output down as well. We're gonna push this. And you hear how different that distortion sounds in the other track, because there's a lot more going on here with those frequencies. And I'm not going to push it as much. Let me know you feel the vibe. Drop it, slide, side to side. Show me what you feel inside. Drop it, slide, side to side. Make you feel. That sounds pretty good right there. Drop it, slide, side to side. Do it till you moving right side. Do it good, do it right. Drop it, slide, side to side. Cool. Do it till you. And now let's put on our maximum. Drop it, slide, side to side. Make you feel it in your thighs. Drop it, slide, side to side. Let me know you feel the vibe. Drop it, slide, side to side. Show me what you feel inside. Drop it, slide, side to side. Make you feel it in your eyes. There we go. Slide, side to side. Do it till you moving right. Now let's listen to both of these. Great, and we can hear the second one actually drop and slide. Has that vocal in it, right? So that's automatically going to make it sound louder to our ears, and depending on what speakers you're on, you're going to hear it louder. The reason why it makes it sound louder to our ears is because our ears are designed or whatever, they naturally hear vocals louder than other instruments. So also these, it's got to be said that these are, meant for club. So there's a lot of low end in here and not a lot of the vocals shouldn't be super pushed. But I believe in keeping the vocals clear if you ever have vocals, keep them clear in the mix. So I always have my vocals up a little bit on the higher side when I have vocals in my songs. There's that. I do it till you moving right. Right, you can hear it's very similar in level to that one there. Feel the vibe, drop it, slide, side to side. Show me what you feel inside. Drop it, slide, side to side. Make you feel it in your thighs. Maybe pull this back a little bit. Do it till you moving right side. Do it good, do it right. Drop it, slide, side to side. Do it till you moving right. Drop it, slide, side to side. Make you feel it in your thighs. Drop it, slide, side to side. Okay, great, and that's the basic mastering chain right there. Let's go ahead and do this in Ableton Live real quick again. And we'll use the same songs in Ableton Live that we're using in Pro Tools. Here, let's just go ahead and save this. And let's just do this using all the same ones, and we can just kind of hear what it's doing. But I just want to show you in Ableton Live, and we'll use some of the Ableton Live setting EQs and stuff like that as well. Go ahead and save this and quit my Pro Tools. Now, one of the reasons why it's good to buy third-party plugins is because then you can kind of move back and forth between DAWs, and you're still using the same plugins with the same settings and stuff like that. So here's my Ableton Live. I'm going to go ahead and set this up real quick. We're going to have our reference track, and here's our track 1, and then track 2, cool. And in here, I'm going to drag my tracks. I'm going to turn off my grid. And we'll use, let's just use that one there. Where did I grab that one from? I can't remember. Monthly mixes? No. Ugh, my memory is so bad. I think it was in here, the keep, yeah, getting freaky. Cool. Turn the warp off. When you drag stuff into Ableton Live, make sure you turn that warp off. You do not want it to be warped. There we go, make sure it's on. And again, cool. Mastering generally just consists of saturation and transparent compressor. I mean, that's fine. You just want to make sure, you've got to make sure you have that brick wall limiter on the end. And if your stuff sounds good with just that amount of, you know, whatever, because realistically, you know, if we're doing this at home, we're doing what I would basically consider like a demo master, not a true final master. I mean, although that's not always the case, obviously, if your stuff's, I've got friends, like I said, who have like, you know, really big songs in the dance industry. Use a soft clipper instead of the brick wall limiter. That's fine. You know, to a point. Here, let's just go ahead and grab. So that's our reference track. But brick wall limiter, I mean, depending on which brick wall limiters you have access to, I would recommend, you know, seeing what they look like. Because a soft clipper, really what it's doing is kind of like what your tape machine is doing to a point. I mean, it does keep it from going over the top. But I also haven't done a lot of research into brick wall compression limiting. No, they're the same. Essentially the same. I mean, it depends on your, like, I say they're the same. A limiter, different limiters react differently to sound. So brick wall limiters just stop it from going over a certain point 100%. A limiter, brick wall compression is just a limiter. So they're the same, but a limiter, some limiters probably do let the sound kind of go over just a little bit, even though they are limiters. But where's the oh, here we go. This one here probably done. That was, yeah. Probably. Oh no, that's no. Drop and slide. Where was it? Let's see, glitch. There we go. Bounces. Probably done. There you go, maybe finish pre-master. There we go. This one here. Drag that in over there. And here, we'll just use these two here. I'm not going to do all three. We'll just use this one here. All right, we can use a few different plugins in this one as well. Turn off the warp. Now, also make sure when you're dragging stuff in, make sure the song is the full song that's in there. Do I use OTT at all? I have OTT. I do not use OTT. It's a multi-band compressor, and it's good. I don't use it because I actually like the multi-band compressor that comes with Ableton Live, and that's part of my mastering chain in here. So I'm going to take my utility out, and what we'll do is, also I'm going to take this out. So let's see what we got here for this. So as much as you can, use the same plugins where you can. So I use my Pro Q3 in the beginning here, and the same settings here. Let's just go ahead and put that in here. So 30 Hertz, And just set that a little bit on the steep side. And over here, set that again right there. We can go in and mess with that in a second if we want. And then, now what you could use instead of this is you could just use the Ableton Live EQ, the EQ8. Right, and you can see mine default comes up to a cut at 30 and 18. I just got that set as my default here because I don't ever need the frequencies below 30 or above 18 really, because it's not stuff that people really hear. What other types of production streams do you do? All sorts of stuff. Talk about everything from the beginnings to the ends and all the things in between, mostly focused on Pro Tools and Ableton Live. This is actually SAE, School of Audio, well, SAE Institute, I should say. All right, so now we got our EQ here. Let's put in our multiband compressor. I use the multiband dynamics that comes with Ableton Live. I like this one a lot. It's got a kind of a slightly dirty feel to it. I don't know, I call it dirty, but it's not really dirty. I don't know, I like it. I like the way it's a bit on the aggressive side. I think it's a good multiband dynamics. I learned how to use it, so I understand what everything's happening in here. But in here, you've got your inputs, and the one I use is the multiband compression, and then I back off the input here. Multiband compression, this EQ here, boom. But then I back off these to 0, and I pull them up as I need them. But I really like this one. And then the other thing you want to adjust in here is your threshold right here. You want to adjust that threshold. Below, above, yeah. So, and if I adjust this, you can see it's adjusting my above one right there. There's nothing set for below at all. It's just all the way to nothing. And then this here. And it's not too much, like the ratio is not too high. This is a good setting here, and you just set that to above right there. And then I'll adjust these as I need to in a second here. And then for saturation, or for the SSL, turn this back on. The SSL is the glue compressor in here, and the glue compressor actually is a model of the SSL, and that's why I'm showing you this in Ableton Live, because Ableton Live comes with models of this stuff, whereas Pro Tools does not really. And then for this one here, the setting that I use is actually I don't really use a setting. I just like set it up myself, so I'll just go ahead and leave that alone for a second. And then finally, the saturator in here. I use a bit warmer, but I usually back off the drive. And then finally our limiter on the end here. And this is like, everything is in here that you need. I've got my EQ, I've got my multiband compression, my glue compressor for the SSL bit, the bit warmer for the saturation, and then limiter. And then I go ahead and mess with these in here. So let's go ahead and set this over to here. Wait. Okay, we'll use this here. Cool. So in here you can see my input compression here. Let's go ahead and put this to 0. I'm gonna push this. So it's a little bit louder, just so I can hear it being louder. I'm gonna go ahead and push this 3 dB. Now, one of the things is that if you are using a multiband compression, you can actually use this for a little bit of like coloring your sound too. So I can push this to bring out those high frequencies more, or I can pull it back. Now, one thing you have to be aware of though when you are doing this is that if you hit the compressor too hard, I can suck that low end right out. It's compressing that low end a lot. And you can hear, like this one here, I know how to use this compressor, multiband compressor a lot more. But you can hear what it's doing to the sound. Right? So I'm gonna be really careful when I'm compressing this, and it doesn't. You have to use your ears with this because it doesn't show you. It doesn't tell you how much the gain reduction is on here, so you gotta use your ears for this. I don't hit these compressors very much. Yeah, I agree. Listening to pre-mixed and the pre-mixed and pre-mastered, or pre-mastered and post-mastered version. Yeah, it's I like the dynamic. The dynamic range is nice before you get into all this stuff. But all right, so let's go ahead over here to our glue compressor. I'm going to set my attack to be a medium attack. We don't want it to be too much, but not the same as like what we set for drums. So I'm going to leave my attack to be like 0.3. The release up here around 0.8 here. And then our ratio, keep that at 4. Pull this threshold back. You don't want too much threshold because you hear what that's doing now.
Let me see you drop it, slide.
Turn this back down to 0. And I want to keep an eye on this stuff here.
Let me see.
And I try not to hit this clip too much in this compressor here. That's more for other stuff over here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to turn this stuff off over here. You can see it's barely hitting it, but we're not hearing it.
Let me see you drop it, slide.
Still not hearing that compression, so we can actually turn this up a bit. If you want to be really careful about this clipping, you can turn on a soft clip there. I usually leave it off here.
Let me see.
Cool. Now with this drive, the drive is the input drive. So you can hear how much that changes the sound, right? Change this over here to analog clip. Now let's listen to this when we push this. Let me turn down the output on it. And this is emulating tape. I didn't actually realize this for a long time. This is kind of emulating that tape thing. But it's a kind of a cheap way to get that tape emulation sound. You hear though, it sounds very different from what our real tape emulators sounded like.
Let me see you drop it.
Right, it doesn't sound nearly as good. Let's go ahead in here. And I can hold down Shift on my keyboard to adjust the numbers by less or more. I'm using my up and down arrow keys.
Let me see.
Cool. Then we got our brick wall limiter here. Keep that setting at -0.3. Look ahead, set that to a higher number.
Let me see you drop it, slide.
Cool. All right, now we have a good loud master here in Ableton Live.
Let me see.
Right. And it sounds pretty good. I mean, you've got to obviously go in here and just do some, tweaking and stuff like that. But again, also the other thing I just want to say is this is more like demo mastering. Again, I just want to reiterate, if you are mastering, if you want your track to be mastered like properly, send it to somebody else because they'll have a different kind of, like they're a bit further away from the music. They can hear it a little bit better and they will be able to really make adjustments and hear things that you're not going to hear. Not because, even like if you're a professional mix engineer, it's not that a mastering engineer necessarily has a better ear for it than you do, but they have a different ear than what you do. They're listening for different stuff, and they're also a step further back from that particular song. So yeah, mastering engineers, their setup is different speakers and stuff like that. So awesome. And then when you're done, when you're ready to bounce it out, so let's call this done. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Make sure you're playing the right track. You're playing the right track. Good. I'm going to go ahead and set up my output settings. This is something I forgot to do this in the Pro Tools, but basically in here, your start and stop point, sample rate 44.1, PCM. Down here, wave, file type wave, bit depth 24, dither options, no dither. Again, don't use dither for stuff unless you are unless you have a reason to. I do not use dithering for anything, and it sounds great. And that's because a lot of the plugins are designed to kind of like make things sound less digital nowadays. Encode MP3, sure, if you want to. Ableton Live has a good MP3 encoder in it. It sounds really good, and it encodes at a constant bit rate of 320, which is what you want anyway. So I always encode my MP3s from Ableton Live. And upload to SoundCloud, I don't really do that. I upload it to SoundCloud myself. And all this other stuff here, just leave the video stuff off, obviously. Then hit export, and you're going to be good to go. So that is what's up. Crazy, I'm usually here on Mondays and Wednesdays. Would you do a spectrum analyzer check at the end? I don't. You probably should. I just listen for it. I just listen for frequencies, and with my normal setup, not here in this bedroom with headphones on, I know what I'm listening for. I don't really do a spectrum frequency check because I know what it sounds like on my speakers in my studio. But if you aren't sure about what it sounds like, or you're not, you're kind of not sure about it, then definitely do a frequency spectrum check. But my feeling is that if you know your sound, you know the sound. And that other stuff is all just kind of gravy. It's nice to have it. It's cool to have it there, but I do not use that. And I actually don't, I just use my eyes on this here because I know what, like for example, I just watch what's going on here, and if you want to see it more, you can drag it up like this, and I see what's happening here. And we can see actually mine is pushed a bit louder. Show me what you feel inside. Drop and slide. And I just kind of watch these levels here is what I always do. But and T says that's the issue with different setups. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here right now.